In the infinite, cold silence of space, there are places that should never be explored. The stars above, indifferent and ancient, hold mysteries that no human mind is ready to confront. This is the story of the starship Calypso, a mission that strayed too far, into the void beyond. Captain Marlowe's final log entry played in my mind as we approached the shimmering nebula. Approaching the edge of the galaxy, "Commander, we should turn back." His voice was tight with a premonition he couldn't explain, but Commander Hartley, ever the pioneer, wasn't swayed. "We're here to make history, Captain. No turning back." His calm resolve settled over the bridge, but it did little to ease the nervous glances exchanged between the crew. The familiar hum of the spacecraft's engines seemed to thin, fading into the unnerving quiet of uncharted territory. We were pushing the boundaries of known space, about to cross a threshold from which there might be no return. Suddenly, the entire ship lurched violently, throwing us against our consoles. "What was that?" yelled Rachel, our engineer, her eyes wide with alarm. "Some kind of anomaly." Commander Hartley was already at his station, his fingers flying across the controls. "Not sure. Let me check the readings." But before he could make sense of the data, a high-pitched, piercing shriek echoed through the ship's corridors. The lights flickered wildly, casting the control room in a strobe of light and shadow. And then we saw it, outside the main viewport, a shape, darker than the void itself, blotted out the distant stars. "There's something out there," Lieutenant Davis shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "It's not a planet, it's moving." At that exact moment, our systems went haywire. A cascade of error messages flooded the main screen, culminating in a single stark notification: "Signal lost, coordinates unknown." Rachel's frantic voice confirmed our worst fear. "We've lost contact with Earth. We're alone." An uneasy silence had fallen over the crew, now gathered in the mess hall. We were adrift, lost, and haunted by the thing we'd seen. The quiet was shattered when a nearby door slammed open with impossible force, and the lights began to flicker erratically again. Captain Marlowe stood, his jaw tight. "It's not just a storm," he said, his voice low and grave. "Something's out there. I can feel it." Then, in the corner of the room, a flicker of movement. A shadow that wasn't a shadow, moving with a speed that defied logic, too quick for any of us to get a clear look. "Did you see that?" Davis whispered, pointing a trembling finger. Commander Hartley, his usual composure finally cracking, stared at the spot, looking deeply disturbed. "Whatever it is, it's not human. It's not even biological. It's something else." As if summoned by his words, the temperature in the room plummeted. Our breath plumed in the freezing air. Rachel's voice, now laced with sheer terror, came from the comms panel. "The systems are failing. Something's draining the power from the ship." The ship's last remaining power flickered out, plunging the control room into absolute darkness. Then a voice, a deep, eerie whisper that was both everywhere and nowhere at once, slithered from the speakers. It was distorted and natural, and chillingly clear. "You should never have come. You are mine now." In the next instant, the very walls of the ship began to pulse with a sickly, glowing light. Tendrils of pure dark energy materialized, creeping like veins across the metal bulkheads and ceiling. "Everyone, get to the escape pods, now!" Captain Marlowe's command cut through our paralysis. We scrambled, a desperate rush for survival, but the entity's presence was a tangible weight, slowing our every move. The escape pods were dead. "We can't leave," Davis yelled, his panic turning to despair. "The pods aren't working." And then, it materialized before us. A terrifying, shifting form of shadow and light, its eyes glowing with a malevolent, ancient energy. It reached for us, and as it did, Commander Hartley stepped forward, his face a mask of defiance. "We're not your prey. We will fight." A violent struggle erupted as the entity tried to pull us into its void, the ship groaning and tearing apart around us, a casualty in a war we never knew we were fighting. The ship was disintegrating. Torn metal and shattered consoles were all that was left between us and the black expanse. We stood at the very edge of the void, staring into an abyss that promised only oblivion. "This is it," Captain Marlowe said, his voice heavy with resignation. There's no escaping it. This is the end. But Rachel, even then, held onto a final, desperate hope. But we can fight back, she whispered, her eyes gleaming with defiant fire. We can trigger the self-destruct and take it with us. The entity swirled around us, hissing in fury as the ship continued to break apart. But Commander Hartley had another idea. A final act not of vengeance, but of warning. No, he said, his voice resolute. We'll leave a warning, for anyone foolish enough to follow. We'll send a signal to Earth, and in the final moments of the Calypso, as the void consumed us, we send our last message. A beacon of terror cast into the dark, back on Earth, in a sterile control center. A junior technician leaned closer to her console, adjusting the frequency. A faint, crackling signal, ghosting across light years, broke the silence. The voice was strained, broken, a whisper from the grave. This is the Calypso, we encountered something. Something from the void. It's too late for us. Don't follow, do not go beyond the void. Then, nothing but static. And so, the Calypso became another lost ship. A ghost story whispered among spacers. Its crew, victims of something older than the stars themselves. A final, desperate warning sent from the abyss. The void beyond is a place no one should ever enter, but some will never heed the warning. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the dark. If you enjoyed this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there,